Welcome to Men Pursuing More. I'm your host, Roger Maupin. I believe every man has the potential to push past his limits and strive for something greater. Whether you're a former athlete who is looking for what's next, a professional pushing through the daily grind, or someone simply ready to break through life's toughest challenges, if you're ready to step into the pursuit of something more, your pursuit begins now. All right, welcome back to Men Pursuing More. I'm your host, Roger Maupin. Today we have Chad Harris joining us. And Chad, before we dive into your story, a few sports questions. First one is your favorite all-time team.
Favorite all-time team, Chicago Bulls.
Chicago Bulls. I love it. Favorite all-time player.
Favorite all-time player, I would have to say, just because of my age and the generation that I grew up in, is everybody wanted to be Michael Jordan. Everybody wanted to be like Michael Jordan. That was just that era. I was just that influential age, that impressionable age, middle school, high school age kid. And Michael Jordan was hot during that time. So it had to be Michael Jordan.
Hey, MJ, who doesn't like MJ?
Right.
And then your biggest highlight playing sports, if it was like through high school, college, or after?
It was after. It was during my professional career when I was a professional wrestler, and I wrestled in the Target Center, and there was 12,375 people there. And I got introduced. I got to come through the curtain, come down. So that was probably my biggest, and I got to perform in front of the crowd. So personally, that was my best sports moment.
Wow, what did they come out to that larger crowd? And we'll get more into that too, Chad, as we kind of go through your story. So Chad, tell us about let's go back to your growing up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, your journey, eventually to Concordia College in St. Paul, and then just tell us some of the successes and challenges along that journey and growing up in Milwaukee, and then eventually your journey to Concordia College in St. Paul.
Milwaukee, Wisconsin is not so much different than Minneapolis. The biggest differences are it's bigger than Minneapolis, bigger than Twin Cities. The spaces of the inner city, the spaces of spots where there are crime areas, the hot spots, the spaces where there are poverty is much more vast in Milwaukee than it is in the Twin Cities. So growing up in that area, my parents, I was fortunate enough to live with both my parents. Both my parents were involved in law enforcement. So I had the opportunity to go to private school for my upbringing. And then that gave me the opportunity to excel in both academics and in athletics, more so than other kids in my neighborhood and even other family members. They didn't have the opportunities that I had. So I excelled at a faster rate than some of my other peers that I had.
And so what sports were you involved in high school?
Football, basketball, track.
Football, basketball, and track.
Yep.
And what high school was that again?
Milwaukee Lutheran.
Milwaukee Lutheran.
Yep. And it's changed. It's changed now. It's not like how it was in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. 70s, 80s, and 90s, the parochial schools were recruitment based. You're going to school there for a specific, you're going there to play sports. You're going there for that reason. You got recruited, you're going there, you're going to play sports.
And so it's kind of that pathway to college sports, is then going to a private college, probably in the Milwaukee area.
Yes. Yep. And there were, it really was a pathway really for sports to other private colleges. And specifically, for me specifically, it was I was getting interest from other Lutheran colleges, and then other colleges that were in that seminary.
Would
So
Concordia probably be one of those colleges too?
yes,
Okay.
correct.
So it helps actually with the recruiting.
Correct. Yes. So that was that was it. It was a double-edged sword. I didn't really have to think about it at the try, but it wasn't probably the best choice of schools. Probably not. I had better offers from other schools. I had better choices. I had Madison Area Technical College was going after me hard. They needed a point guard. So it's a 2-year technical school. And me as a young person, I was like, I don't want to go to a 2-year school. You don't have the information that you do when you're an adult. But a 17-year-old kid I don't want to go to a 2-year school. I'm better than that. And their track is they were the feeder school for Madison, the Badgers. And I remember the conversation. Yep, you play here for 2 years. We'll get you ready, and you'll go right to You'll go right to Madison from our school. We're their school. Play for us for 2 years, then we'll get you ready. Same playbook, same everything, same training program. We'll get you ready, and you just don't hear anything after the 2 years. You don't hear anything as a kid. You and I deal with that right now. It's hard talking to kids about those things because they think that they're better than what they are. And I think that situation probably would have been better for me. I struggled at Concordia. It was too big of a jump for me, I think, for me to go right from my high school over to Concordia. It would have been an easier transition, I think, for me to go from over down to that technical college, I think.
Yeah, tell the listeners about, I went to a JUCO, so it was a really good experience for me going to JUCO, and then I went on to a 4-year to play. Tell us some of the like highlights in Concordia and what sports you participated in, but also, like you said, some of the challenges attending Concordia.
I played football and basketball at Concordia, which both the athletic side, I had no problem. The athletics, great, nothing, no problems, no. It was the academic side for me. I needed, and there are schools that move more at the student pace rather than just their own academic pace. That the pace that they were moving was too fast for me. I was an athlete. I wasn't a student, and I don't know if that the listeners will maybe understand that. I was dialed in and geared in on being an athlete, not so much dialed in on being a student.
It's interesting you say that because most of the men that I've had on my episodes have talked about that. Many of them in sports, it wasn't always them to focus on their academics. They were kind of there for the sports.
Yep. And then the reality behind I didn't want to go to college, period, to begin with. I had no interest in going to college. None. I had zero interest, no interest in being there. I didn't want to play sports in college.
So how did that come about you playing sports in college?
My entire upbringing, my entire adolescence, going all the way up through puberty, going up through high school, my mindset was, and I knew there was something inside of me that said, you are going to be a professional wrestler. There wasn't anything in me that said, you go to college, play sports, go get a job. It was my whole mind. I would watch hours and hours of tapes wrestling in high school, in middle school, and high school, studying tapes.
how did you take an interest in this? Was it like a family member? Was it a friend that watched a lot of pro wrestling or?
Well, it was interestingly enough, it was my my grandmother that my mother's mother. She lives down in North Carolina, and then my father. Those are my two earliest memories of me seeing professional wrestling.
So influenced through the family. So I think that leads right into the share with the listeners. Once you graduated from college, you went on to tell us a little bit about, you went on the semi-pro football and then eventually on to, like you talked about
So
before, the pro wrestling.
I didn't graduate college first. I took a little hiatus first.
Okay.
So took a hiatus first, and I went and got my personal training license to be a personal trainer. And I worked at a YMCA. And I think I was 24 years old. And I was a personal trainer at the YMCA down in St. Paul, Midway,
Mm-hmm.
Midway St. Paul YMCA. And there was a client that I had who just had moved up, and he was actually the defensive coordinator for and I forget the name of I always forget the name of the team, but it was it was the Texas, like one of those 5-star Texas schools. They had just won the state championship in Texas. You know, they have like 400 kids on their team, and they play in Jerry Jones World they play there, you know. So he was the D coordinator. He was talking to me. He goes, "Yeah, my wife and I just moved up here. I'm looking for a coach somewhere." And I just saw an article in the paper for an assistant for a semi-pro football team, and I gave him the number. Said, "Hey, call this. They're looking for a D coordinator for a semi-pro team. Why don't you call? Maybe you'll." So he actually did. The next day, he came back and talked to me. He said, "Hey, the only way that I'll play or coach is if you come and you play for me." And I said, "Hey, look, I'm not. I haven't played in a couple of years." He goes, "Nope, you got to come." So I went out there and I tried out, and he put me on a team. So then I had been training like really hard for a couple years, like training like I mean like, and I don't know why, just training super hard. And he was my coach. I played corner, and then I end up being like the national player of the year, the whole like country. Most
Awesome.
interceptions, most touchdowns for pick sixes, most punt returns for touchdowns. I mean, just the like numbers. But then in the same time, that same year, I decided to get into professional wrestling. That same exact that year, so I was at a crossroads. What do I do? Do I fully invest in football and and and, and try to go the NFL route, or do I invest myself in what I know that I'm supposed to do professional wrestling wise? So it was like a coin toss.
You have a tough decision to make. And how
It was
did you
tough.
come about that decision? And also tell us about how you came about that decision, then share with the audience about the sport of pro wrestling. There might be, there's probably some on this that really maybe don't understand the sport. Maybe you can explain a little bit more.
It, so the I'll start with the last. The professional wrestling is is a choreographed car crash. That's what it is. You choreograph, and you try to line up everything in perfect synchronization, a car crash, so that there is violence, there is a wreckage, but that at the end of the night, both compatriots, or whether it's 4 people, 5 people, 6 people, can go home at the end of the night. But there's still violence involved in the meantime. That would be the best. That's the best example that I could give of what it is.
So going back to the first question, how was it? I mean, you just kind of felt you were meant to be
I
a
think
pro
that I
wrestler and
was.
just,
I think I think it was like it was. I truly believe that it was that we're all given God-given abilities, strengths, and talents and gifts. I think that that's what God was speaking to me, saying that this is where the road that you're supposed to go down, and you're supposed to take that path. And I think that's what it was. I don't think it was. I don't think it was. It was really for me to decide. I think at the end of the day.
Yeah, if you just decided, you think about it, in the semi-pro football, I mean, you were MVP.
Right. Yes. Yes.
All the accolades that go with that, and it's like,
right.
wow, you're going to step away from that?
Right. Yes. Yes. But that's one of those things where it's just, it's superficial.
Mm-hmm.
That those accolades really, I don't think about those. The only time I think about it is like when I talk about it, like if somebody asks me. Those, I don't hang those on the shelf. I don't have plaques or anything hanging up on a wall for that. I don't have, I don't have those awards. I don't even know where they are. I have them. I have those awards. I do have those, but I don't know where they are, because those things, it didn't mean that much to me.
Well, Chad, that says a lot about you, just your humbleness.
Yep.
The key word I was thinking is like humility.
Yep.
Because you could have them pace it up. You could be telling everyone, walking
Yep.
to the Eastview High School hallways, in your house,
Right.
displayed.
Yep.
I appreciate that, you sharing that. So share with the listeners, you continue along and your journey you came up on Eastview High School, and how you came up on Eastview High School. And then you were there while you're also pro wrestling at the same time too. And then what were some of your responsibilities there?
Eastview High School. So it's kind of like a convoluted story. So getting into professional wrestling, when I got into it when the professional wrestling business was at its all-time low. There weren't a lot of jobs nationally. There wasn't a lot of money into it across the country. Locally, there were only a certain many spots. So fortunately, I was good enough to be able to work locally. But to get national jobs, it was hit or miss. So I still had to have a job, a regular, we call it a shoot job. I had to have a shoot job. I had to have a real 9-to-5 job. And I still have my personal training license. So then I went over to Lifetime just to see if I can get a little bit more money, get a little bit more flexibility, wouldn't have to work weekends, so I could travel, drive around in a car just to pick up wrestling jobs. But then while I was at Lifetime, one of my friends that I've had for years, and I played football with him in college, his wife was working at Lifetime. So we were talking, and he told through word of mouth, I found out that there was an opening at Eastview High School. Excuse me. And she gave me the number to one of the admins I was hiring for a part-time security job. And I just got done working out. I called him. I said, hey, I heard you're hiring. And he said, yeah, well, can you stop by? And I was like, well, I just got done working out. I don't have interview clothes on. I don't have a resume. Just come by anyway. So I stopped by. I'm in my workout gear. This is during Christmas break. And I come in and we're talking, and we talk for, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes. And we're talking, and he says, I just need you to go to the district office, sign some paperwork, and you start on January 4th. And I'm like, I didn't know that this, I didn't even know that I wanted this job to begin with. That's the first thing. But he just, basically forced me into the job. So here I am all these years later.
And so I know when you were at Eastview High School, we're both at Eastview High School, and I know faculty have a lot of respect for you, not only in security, but you're involved as a security person at Eastview High School. You're involved in a lot more than just being a security person. Maybe share a little bit with the audience about that.
Well, it's a position where I have the ability to hear different people's positions and how they handle certain problems and how they solve certain problems. So over the years, I've been able to insert all these different problems and insert that into my like brain, right? So now when there are issues in the building, most often than not, whether it's a teacher, a custodian, or whoever, they might come to me before they go to an administrator and say, this is what the issue is, how do we solve this problem? And I would say 90% of the time, I can solve that problem before it gets to the administrative level. And it doesn't matter. And usually it has nothing to do with a security issue. I would say most times it doesn't. It could be something that has to do with academia. It could have to do with scheduling. Whether it could have to do with, I mean, you name it. People they could come to me and ask me, and I can say, yep, this is what it is, and this is how you solve that problem. And I think just being able to be a fly on the wall and listen and be able to hear things has put me in the beneficial position to be able to be in a position to assist everybody in the building.
Well, you think about that for kids, like a father figure,
Yes.
for the boys
Yes.
and girls.
Yes.
And then being a mentor, being a coach, being a counselor, being an advisor.
Yes.
We could being kind of an admin at times. You're taking care of things that maybe they don't have to take care of.
Right. Yes. Yes. I think the one piece, there are many students who are seeking a firm hand voice, male father, whether and a lot of times, they're seeking that they're seeking a negative interaction with a father figure type person because they're not getting it anywhere else, whether it's at home or in the community. So it might be that they're seeking that out and they come right to me and they're in trouble. They're wanting to use expletives, waiting for me to be that father figure to come down on them. And most often than not, I oblige that situation.
Well, this podcast is called Men Pursuing More, Adolescents Pursuing More, where they're looking for, like you said, a father figure. They want structure. They might not come out and tell you, but they want firmness. They want discipline.
Yep. And these students, and you know who they are. They know that once they cross a line, that I'm the first person that they have to see. So why do they keep continuing to cross that line? They know that they're gonna have to see me. So like it's are you intentionally having to have interactions with me? And I think that they are. I think they're intentionally having to have, they want to have that interaction with me.
And then besides all that you've done, you've been involved in sports too,
Correct.
coaching sports at Eastview High School.
Yes.
Now you did some basketball. You did.
I've coached football. I've coached football at every level. I've coached basketball at the sophomore and varsity level, and then I've coached track.
And you're probably involved in the weight room too, right?
I did. I was the strength and conditioning coordinator for the boys basketball program, and I also did the girls lacrosse program.
Well, you've taken on a lot, Chad. So Eastview appreciates you. Sometimes maybe people don't recognize you or appreciate you as much as they should. And I just want to tell you in this podcast that, hey, I appreciate you for all you do. I know of it. Maybe others may, once they listen to this podcast, they may realize how much you do for Eastview High School. So I appreciate that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, share some of the challenges you may have faced or how maybe you overcame challenges. What are maybe a few challenges you can think that what you may have faced and maybe how you overcame some of those challenges?
Oh, let's see here. Are you in adolescence or in adulthood or in like
Well,
what
maybe you
like
can do it when you were younger and maybe one maybe as an adult.
when I was younger, I had traumatic brain injury when I was younger that set me back probably, I would say, years, multiple years, you know, 6, 7 years. I was on top of a jungle gym when I was 7 years old, and a neighbor from across the street jumped up. I was on the very top, and I don't know if you remember those old school ones. And he
Oh,
pushed me
yes.
off, and I flipped over a couple times, and I landed on the top of my head, and then my knees hit my face. I remember my knees hitting my face, and I woke up at home, but I woke when I came to, and after I lost the ability to speak. I had a severe stutter. I still do to this day. I have learned how to cover it up as best as possible. I was bilingual before that, 100% fluent in Spanish before that. 100% lost that. Reading, like I said, I couldn't read. After that, I had to relearn how to read, relearn how to do arithmetic. So I was behind, far behind than my peers. So it took me a while to come to recover from that. So that was rigorous and it was tough. And then back then there was no documentation, or there was no medical studies back then
Mhm.
on any of that.
Did you get any assistance from like the school, or was it just mainly just what your parents?
My
Uh,
parents didn't know.
they didn't even know.
Nope. The only person that knew was my sister. I think she forgot about it. I just I just told my mother about this 5 years ago. She had no idea. And then the light bulb came on, and she was like, now I understand, and now I know what you.
And Chad, what you went through, for that many years, and you were kind of aware that something just wasn't right,
Right.
but others said, well, he
And
just must be having a reading problem, or he just is struggling in school, or
right. And then in high school, playing, back in the 90s, you know, I probably got, I don't know, 6, 7, 8, 9 concussions, and it would go right back. I would be sitting in class looking at books or textbooks, and the words would just be like swimming on the pages. I'm sitting there looking like I can't. So then I just was, it was rough. It was rough.
well, that just kind of covered adolescents all the way through adults,
Yeah.
because that's a kind of a challenge you've had to kind of face,
Yep.
throughout your life,
Uh-huh.
or most of your life. Wow. I
Right.
appreciate you sharing that with the audience, Chad. Well, let's move on to when have you seen kind of the most personal or professional growth in your life, and what do you feel caused that?
I think there was a time at Eastview when I had a mentor that did not allow me to surf through my professional career. They force me to go back to get my college degree, force me to get, I have, I don't know, countless certifications. I'm certified through the FBI, certified through FEMA. I have just, you know, piles of of certifications that I can put on a resume right now, that I could like walk into a place and pull their socks off. And it's only because of my mentor that was like, you cannot just sit back and coast through life. You have to be, step to the forefront and take education seriously. And that's when I realized that there were people in education that truly like backed up what they were saying, because it was, I always felt like education was just kind of just fluff. Even when I was working at Eastview, I was like, God, these people are just talking. There's no substance behind what they're saying. But she backed it up, and she was very adamant, very forceful, and I took it serious, and I followed through with what she said, and I am where I am right now because of her.
Well, appreciate Eastview High School, but especially her that came
Yep.
forward. And
Yep.
any others that you can think of, like maybe another person that's adult or that had a real impact on your life?
Well,
That
just the
was,
people that took chances. I mean, especially, I always think about the basketball side of of ESU, like, the when I was coaching, you were when I first started, you were kind of involved in a program, but when people when people visually look at me, I think they think he doesn't understand or doesn't know what he's talking about basketball. And I'm not the type of person that just goes out and just boasts my accolades. That's just not my personality. That's just not me. I don't go out and say, well, yeah, well, I played Division II basketball. That's just not me. To prove that I know what I'm talking about basketball. So for the coaching staff to say, hey, we want you to help work out with, we want you to help us, we want you to coach, we believe that you have the knowledge about basketball. We know, oh, and by the way, I played against one of the old coaches, so he knew, that but still, I still think that I still get those looks kind of when I say I coached basketball. So it's kind of rewarding for me personally when I'm observed as being a good basketball coach.
so with that, with being coaching and you being a pro wrestling, did you have a certain routine that you went by for like nutrition and
Oh, yeah.
health? I mean, for you that you had to be in great, you're still in amazing shape, but for you to be in pro wrestling.
I think, and not again, not to put myself over. I think I'm right now, currently right now, I'm in better shape than I was 15 years ago. It's just discipline. It's you have to be able to perform with the minimal amount of clothing on as possible and not embarrass yourself. And that takes high amount of discipline, high amount of training, diet, and those are, it's not easy, but I like living that lifestyle. It's just my lifestyle. I love working out. I love pushing myself to my limits working out. It's just my thing.
And for listeners out there, Chad, that could be a whole nother conversation. We can have a whole nother podcast just on that. So I appreciate you sharing that. Well, we're going to kind of wrap it up here, Chad, and we're just going to give you some kind of final thoughts that you want to leave with men as they continue on their journey personally or professionally or both.
Well, I think what I would leave with, we have to be able to, as men, go back to being men and being comfortable being men. And I think we lost that along the way somewhere. I don't know where. I don't know when the exact date was, but we've lost that along the way. And I think there might be some hesitation or fear with that. And I think collectively, we have to get back to being okay with being men and okay with being masculine. And that's okay. It's okay to be strong. And it's okay to have a strong opinion. And it's okay not to back down. You know, with what your whatever it is that you think that you feel strongly about, you don't have to back down from that. And you don't have to capitulate just because you think that someone's going to say you're toxic or you're whatever the new catchphrase is. You don't have to change for that. And I think we have to go back to being okay with being a man. And me personally, I think there have been times where I have, and I'll be the first to raise my hand and say, you know what, I've done that in the last 7 years because I thought that it would, negatively affect me on the job or in conversation. But then in the last 12 months, I've said, I'm not doing that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just not going to do that. I can't compromise my values. I can't compromise my religion, my faith. I can't take a back seat because at some point in time we're gonna have to answer for that. So I'm not gonna do that anymore. And I think my final thought will be we need to stand up and go back to being men.
Amen. And where can our listeners follow you?
You can find me at Chadwick Wentworth III on Instagram. I don't do Twitter. I'm not a big social media person, but I am on Chadwick Wentworth III on Instagram.
Hey, that's a wrap with Chad Harris. And I want to thank you for being part of Men Pursuing More podcast. Appreciate your time, Chad.
All right.
Hey, thanks for listening to Men Pursuing More podcast. Don't forget to follow us at mopandcoaching.com.